So firstly, let's take the easy one, pensions. The existing state pension is the lowest in Europe. And on independence, the Scottish Government should take that over, turn it into the Scottish Universal Pension, and implement existing SNP policy, which is to increase that to the EU average of £300 per week per person. What happens to private pensions? Well, nothing happens on independence. You have a contract with the pension provider, your employer, the insurance company or whatever, so those will stay exactly the same. The question about the European Union, well, there's a lot of nonsense talked about the European Union. It is simply not possible to just rejoin the European Union by saying, right, we want to rejoin and we'll be in tomorrow, because we won't. Brussels will be very kind, they will fall over backwards to help us, but fast for Brussels means the negotiations will take 4 years. That would be a record for an accession. They're not going to bend the rules because Spain would not like that, the other applicants wouldn't like it. So the answer to the question, what do we do about the EU, is after independence we have a referendum on whether people wish to apply to rejoin the EU, and I think the answer to that will be yes, which will trigger the 4 years of negotiations. In the meantime, what we can do on Independence Day is to join EFTA and get into the Norway position, which puts us back in Erasmus, back in the single market, and it may well turn out that that would be the best position in the long run. The negotiations with the EU are not straightforward. We have the tricky issue of fish, for example. The EU requires 5% VAT on food and children's clothes and things like that, which we may not want to do. So long as we're in the EFTA position in the single market, that restores the ease of access to the EU, cures the trade problems. On the border with England, well, it's blatantly obvious that whatever ends up being the border between Northern Ireland and England will be exactly the same as the border between Scotland and England. So you don't need to panic about it. We'll still be in the common travel areas. There'll be no customs, no passport controls. You can move freely. You don't need a work permit to work in England. Goods are going to be subject to some checks, unfortunately. That is the UK's choice. It's not our doing, it's theirs. Yeah. And obviously on my particular subject, currency. There's only one answer to this question, and that is we have our own currency as soon as possible. That means, for Andrew Wilson's benefit, a couple of months after Independence Day.
Oh, I like that one.
I've got some of it here, which, when we were still able to do talks face to face, we could get the whole room to bring along some sterling and change it into the Scottish currency and then spend it at the bar or buy some of my maps. It's really not very difficult. If you want to find out more about the currency question, have a look at the reservebank.scot website. But it's basically very straightforward. We have something like 200 billion of sterling, which belongs to us and our companies, government, council and so forth. We have about 130 billion of sterling debts, which we will probably repay. So that will be 200 billion coming into the Scottish pound, 130 billion going out to settle the old debts. That leaves the Scottish Reserve Bank holding 70 billion of foreign reserves, which was our sterling that we handed in. So anyone who says we have to go and save for 10 years to build up foreign reserves is talking out their rear end. Because we don't, it's automatic. Anyone who wants to know more about currency, then, as I say, you can email me through the Reserve Bank website, or you can join the Scottish Currency Group on Facebook. So, lastly, in terms of the Scottish Government and the civil service, at the moment we only have 7,000 civil servants in the Scottish Government. Denmark has 50,000 core civil service positions. So that suggests that we are going to need a lot more civil servants to man the Ministry of Defence, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Finance, and all of these sort of things. I estimate something like 35,000 new jobs, and I've proposed, although I think we're going to have to wait for the November SNP conference, that those new jobs be allocated proportional to the population of each council area, with a 20% or more premium for any council which is currently deprived, rural or remote. So that would be, say, Inverclyde or Dumfries and Galloway or the Western Isles. In the case of Dumfries and Galloway, that would mean 2,000 civil service jobs going to that area. So that's something of direct, concrete benefit to voters. They can see that that's going to be maybe a job for them, a job for one of their family, suppliers, contracts, all that sort of thing. So, independence means that everything changes, including what's behind us. So, what I would say to our MPs and the First Minister, tell people that. Don't try pretending that nothing's going to change and it all just stays much the same. Because if that's the case, there's no point having independence. Everyone instinctively knows that it's going to change, that we are going to have to change the currency, that other things are going to change. We're going to shake up land ownership. We're going to shake up the Defence Force. All of those sort of things. So just tell people, be honest up front. They know it's going to happen. Sell it as hope and opportunity. And I think we can then easily win the referendum. Thank you.